Let's take a look at two more examples where we're interested in solving the linear function for a particular variable. So here we're given c is equal to 100 plus 0.2q. We want to solve for q. And again, just like in the last example, notice that we have two unknowns or two variables in our equation, and we want to solve for the other variable. So anytime you have an equation like this one where we have c equals and we're trying to solve for the other variable, we're trying to get this equation down to q equals. This equation q is called the inverse function. This is called the inverse function of c. So you'll learn about this in your next math class, but I wanted to just go ahead and mention it here so that when you do hear about inverse functions in, say, Math 110 or Math 112, you'll understand what that means, okay? And basically what it means is solve for the other variable. Okay, so let's solve for the other variable. Let's solve for q. Okay, I'm going to keep q on the right-hand side of the equation here, so that means I need to move this 100 over to the left-hand side of the equation. So to do that, I'm going to use inverse operations. Okay, 100 minus 100 cancels out. That becomes 0 on the right-hand side, leaving us with 0.2q on the right-hand side. And then notice on the left, I can't combine c with negative 100 because they are unlike terms. So on the left, that just leaves us with c minus 100. And then our last step here is to undo this multiplication of 0.2 times q. So the inverse operation of multiplication is division. So let's divide out that 0.2. And remember, whatever we do to one side, we have to make sure we do the same thing to the other side. Whoops. So I got to divide out this, wow, let me try again. I got to divide out the entire left-hand side by 0.2. And so I'm left with q is equal to c minus 100 divided by 0.2. And you can leave your answer like this. This is perfectly fine, right? Some students, they like to break apart the fraction. So you can, if you'd like to, you can break this apart as c divided by 0.2 minus 100 divided by 0.2. And then we can simplify that further, okay? So we get 100 divided by 0.2, and that gives us 500 on the right. Oops, let me minus. Okay, so any of these forms would be correct. Let's take a look at the last example here. So here we have an equation for t. T equals 1/4 r plus 40. We're trying to solve for r. So again, we're solving for the other variable, which means that r is going to be the inverse function of t. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to keep r on the right-hand side of the equation. So that means I got to undo this plus 40. So I'm going to subtract it on both sides. This cancels out. Okay. On the left here, again, I cannot combine t and negative 40 because they are not like terms. So on the left here, I'm just left with t minus 40. And on the right, I have 1/4 r. Okay. Now, I need to undo this 1/4. So because it's a fraction, I can deal with it as a fraction by multiplying it by its reciprocal, which is 4/1. And by doing that, this cancels and becomes 1, leaving me with just r on the right-hand side. Okay, but whatever I do to one side, I got to make sure I do the same thing to the other side. So I'm going to multiply this by 4/1, which is the same thing as multiplying it by 4. And then now we have to remember to distribute this to all the terms inside the parentheses. So on the left, I have 4t minus 4 times 40, so that's 160. So r is equal to 4t minus 160. That's it.